So even the fact that doubt can arise in people when they approach the courts or the independent institutions is very, very concerning. And overall, this paints a picture where cadre deployment is a big risk to South African society, to the economy, and to the social order.
We at the CRA have long warned of the dangers of cadre deployment, the ANC's strategy of extending its power across multiple institutions in South Africa. Recent revelations from the ANC's Deployment Committee show that this policy of cadre deployment may have extended as far as the judiciary and Chapter 9 institutions. This was a point that we raised in our weekly Risk Alert, the CRA's exclusive client product, which goes out every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Co-author of the Risk Alert is John Endres, director of the CRA. He joins me now. So John, what is this policy of cadre deployment and why is it so damaging?
Yes, David. So the ANC at its 50th National Conference in 1997 in Kimberley decided that it needed to emplace party loyalists throughout the state administration, including the police, judiciary, so the courts, the education system, and all important centers and levers of power, including the business world. And the purpose of doing so was to make sure that the public administration and all the important stakeholders in the economy and in society would not sabotage the ANC's plans that it had for South Africa, keeping in mind that this was just a few years after the democratic transition. So there would have been possibly justified concerns about whether civil servants employed by the apartheid governments would be loyal to the new dispensation. And to make sure that they were, the ANC adopted this resolution that said that ANC people must be in all the important positions to carry out the ideals and objectives of the African National Congress. And that effectively is what cadre deployment is. That's when it had where it has its origins. And it is also worth pointing out that in the context of the great discussion we're having at the moment around state capture, cadre deployment actually can be interpreted as a form of official state capture policy by a single political party. So state capture is not just a Zuma era aberration or a reversal of the normal rules of state action, but rather it was stated and official policy of the party that has led to some quite disturbing consequences, as we shall explore in this conversation.
Enjoying this analysis? Click here to sign up for our 30-day free trial for more content from the CIA.
All right, so that principle of having an independent civil service that implements policy impartially, regardless of the incumbent party, that is something that has been dramatically eroded in South Africa. So in terms of the effect that this has on service delivery, on governance generally, what is the impact of this, John, of cadre deployment?
Well, I think the impact has been contradictory and maybe counterintuitive from the point of view of the ANC, because the cadre deployment policy was designed to strengthen the hold of the party over the state and make it more powerful. And it may, in fact, have turned out to do the opposite. And the reason for that is that many of the deployed cadres are not competent to hold the positions that they do in the SOEs, in the public administration, even in the judiciary, maybe in the independent Chapter 9 institutions, and therefore their performance levels aren't very good. And underperformance or service delivery failures have been a great driver of dissatisfaction with the performance of the ANC, most notably expressed in its decline in the elections and in its decline to below 50% in the latest local government elections. So the intended outcome of the policy might have been subverted and turned into the exact opposite of what the party had hoped. And I think when we speak about cadre deployment, the one aspect we should keep in mind is whether the deployed personnel are competent to hold the positions they are deployed to. In many cases, the answer is no, as I think the evidence is now showing very, very clearly. And secondly, the question is also the integrity of the people deployed in this fashion. In other words, are they really dedicated to serving the people of South Africa, to performing their roles and duties to the benefit of the citizens, or are they beholden to a political program that is directed by a party? And do they use this opportunity also to improve their own lives and to fleece their own pockets even when this is to the detriment of citizens. And I think we've seen plenty of examples of that as well. So those are two of the main concerns around cadre deployment. The one is around competence. Are the right people being deployed to the jobs? And the second is around integrity. Are the people being deployed honest civil servants or honest judges, depending on which roles they get deployed to? And here, to both of those questions, the answer all too often is no.
Okay, what about the broader sphere of governance, John? Because we're not only talking about executive functions here, we're also talking about state-owned enterprises, as well as these revelations have now shown, to an extent, the judiciary has been affected by this, as well as Chapter 9 institutions.
Indeed. And what we found here, I think, or a really concerning effect that we can observe here, is that in addition to questions about competence and questions about integrity, there's now, of course, also the question about bias. So there are some institutions where it is very important for the people holding those positions to treat all South Africans in an unbiased and impartial way. For example, in the case of judges, and for example, in the case of the Chapter 9 institutions, which are designed to protect South Africa's democracy and its constitution. And what we see here now is that doubts, and I think justified doubts, have begun to be expressed about whether any South African coming before a judge, for example, or approaching a Chapter 9 institution will in fact be accorded the same treatment, or whether if those the occupants of those positions have been deployed by the ANC, ANC supplicants might be treated more favorably than people who represent points of view that do not accord with the ANC's worldview. And of course, judges are an obvious case for that. If you imagine a situation where there's some kind of election dispute and a party other than the ANC approaches a court in order to find a resolution and a decision, that party, if it is not the ANC, will now always have to wonder, is the judge that we're dealing with in fact impartial? Or is this judge beholden to the ANC because he or she was deployed by the ANC and will therefore tend to issue judgments in favor of the ruling party? And I think that the fact of bias is one concern, but the perception of bias is another. So even the fact that doubt can arise in people when they approach the courts or the independent institutions is very, very concerning. And overall, this paints a picture where cadre deployment is a big risk to South Africa's society, to the economy, and to the social order.
And John, how does the political ideology of the ANC fit into this? We often, in our risk alerts and in our client briefings, stress the importance of understanding the National Democratic Revolution as the kind of guiding ideological framework of the ANC. And the reason, the ultimate cause of many of the hostile policies that we see today. Cadre deployment, it seems to me, is intimately intertwined with the concept of the National Democratic Revolution.
So the National Democratic Revolution is, of course, a guiding principle that determines many of the policies and projects coming out of the ANC. And the purpose of the NDR is ultimately to turn South Africa into a socialist society on the way to bringing it to a communist state. And many of the principles that underlie the NDR run counter to the Constitution. And you have to wonder if, for example, a deployed judge is forced to decide whether to be loyal to the NDR, which guides the principles of the party that deployed him, or to the Constitution, which mandates that all South Africans must be treated equally before the law. How will that judge decide? And that is a concern. You know, what kind of country are we going to have in South Africa when the Constitution can be undermined through cadre deployment?
Thanks very much, John. Let's hand over to you, our viewers. Do you think that cadre deployment is a risk to governance in South Africa? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. And also, if you would like to access our weekly risk alerts, that's every Monday morning at 7 a.m., you can do so via our 30-day free trial. There's a link in the description below where you can sample all of our content for free for 30 days before joining up as a paid subscriber. My name is David Ansara. This is the CRA. Until next time, take care.